Okay, this is TeacherThink, where you can get some ideas about how to help your child with an emphasis on how the teacher thinks to help you do your best with that. So there are a lot of top 10 lists out there, as you may know, and this one is about things you should never say to your teacher. And they're all a little bit different, but they hit a lot of the same themes. And I looked this one over a little bit, and it seemed kind of interesting. So why don't we go through them? All right. So first, the number one thing, never, the last teacher that taught my kid was an idiot. I think they're starting out with one that we can all agree on because obviously you don't do that. That's like going to a job interview and bagging your last boss. It doesn't look good and it doesn't really help, and it'll throw the teacher's defenses up a little bit because, maybe he'll be saying, I'm an idiot next year. So that one's easy. What do they say? When you diminish your children's former teachers that way, it seems that you don't respect their profession. Well, that may be going a little too far. Point made. Number two, it must be nice to play with kids the whole day. I guess really kindergarten and first, second grade teachers hear that kind of thing. And it may look like play, but it's certainly very directed play. The school day hopefully ought to feel a lot like play at that age. Anyway, they're not just playing with the children. Sometimes it's better to cut your tongue if you can't hold what's coming in from your mouth. Point of correction. Teachers don't play with their kids from morning to evening. They teach, play, and help them comprehend things around them. From preschool to college, it's usually a serious business to nurture your kids. That being said, the school day, it should feel fun. It should feel like there's enjoyment and everything. It can't be all play. If you get too much into play, then nothing happens. I think there's a balance there. But yeah, they don't. Kindergarten looks fun, but I think it's exhausting. You are making my kid dumb. What do they mean by this? It's not a teacher's responsibility alone to make your kid bright. You have to put in the work as well, and your kid needs to make that decision that he or she is going to take studies seriously. That's the main thing, taking the study seriously, because, if there's such a thing as native intelligence, you're not going to be able to increase that directly. What you can do is give them a lot more skill and talent to do things. Anything can be enhanced, and successful people are mostly people who know things and have enough determination to put them through. They've got some perseverance. So let's see. Still, what does it mean by this? A certified teacher who's passed the practice exams can help your kid grow and shape their future for good. Well, yeah, but so can actually a lot of private school teachers who've never taken those exams. Yeah, at the same time, you could waste an entire year not really teaching a kid something, but you're not going to make them dumb. Yeah, that's recoverable. But anyway, if you have that perception, you might be missing something as well, I would have to guess, because I think all the teachers are really trying. There are the odd teachers who've kind of mailed it in, but it really does come. Here's the main point. The student has to take his study seriously. Improving really ultimately comes from the inside. It doesn't come from some external influence. Teachers, parents can do a lot to influence a child. They've found more and more that it's really a child's peers that influence them more than the parents, a lot more than the teacher. Teacher just has them for 1 year for part of the day. If they're going to do well, it needs to come from the inside. That can be encouraged. That can be nurtured. But it's got to be their decision in the end. And a lack of performance on the student's part isn't really anybody's fault to assign. All right, 4, my kid never lies. Right, yeah, I have heard this. And those people, I don't know what they're trying to, every kid lies at some point. In fact, I think it's Piaget who was talking about this in particular with the stages of development. Once a kid gets a theory of mind, which is that they understand that other people have their own minds, and what they think doesn't necessarily correspond to what you think. So a baby just thinks that if I think it, everybody knows it. Like there's no difference between the baby and mom, for example. But once they start to realize that people do have different minds, they have different memories, they know different things, then they start to realize that they could just tell a lie and people would believe it and they might get out of doing something. So they'll experiment with that. That comes at a young age, 4 or 5, something like that. It obviously shouldn't be encouraged, but at a certain level it should be celebrated because it means their mind is developing normally. So I don't know, if a parent says my kid never lies, I would probably want to say, well, maybe he's missed some developmental steps. I might want to say, I've never said anything like this, of course, obviously, but you hear that from a parent, you think, you might be really gullible, actually. You might be falling for a lot. Most students are very honest. But I think it's been well shown that people are honest when they know that somebody's going to know. And just relying on a kid to never lie is just not something that you can do. And you shouldn't ask a teacher to do that or believe that a child never lies. Let's see. If it's your kid's word against the teacher's, tell your kid to tell the truth and promise them you will forgive. If indeed your kid lied, understand that it happens. Yeah, work with it. Don't deny it. Don't just say it's impossible or, your life's over if you have lied. Let's see what it says in the first paragraph. Who has never lied? It's actually normal for kids to lie to have their way to escape punishment. But it's absurd that a teacher would lie against your kid. What for? So I guess they're casting a little bit as, the teacher says one thing, my kid says something else, and he never lies. So therefore, I guess you must be lying. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. There are other issues involved. Focus on your students more than your salary. Yeah, that's just sort of rude, I guess. You have to worry about your salary. They talk about that. Everybody has to worry about money, but nobody goes into teaching to earn money. So you can take that one to the bank. They do fine, but they're not forgetting the students. Anyway, I think that's an easy one. Why is my kid not your favorite student? Well, nobody should feel like the favorite student. Everybody should feel equal. Everyone should feel like he or she is on a level playing field with the teacher and with everybody else. It is wrong for a kid to feel like he's the favorite or she's the favorite. Even if they kind of like it for a while, they'll come to hate it when other students notice that there's a favoritism. That's the worst thing that can happen. Also, they shouldn't be striving for that. They should be striving for equality. We live in a democracy. That's what it's all about. Everybody's equal. You don't get special privileges unless you've earned it. I have heard people say things like, every child should go home feeling like he's your favorite student. I say no. I don't believe that at all. If they all feel like they're the special one, you're going to have conflict. Everyone should go home feeling as if he's or she is equal. Maybe have you ever listened to the Lake Wobegon tales? They used to be big, certainly in the 80s and 90s. There was one of those stories where the mother takes each of her 4 children aside and says, I just want you to know that you're really my favorite one. And then one by one, the children figure out that she said that to each of the others. And it's not great. Yeah. It's perfectly legitimate, however, to mention to a teacher that a child feels that someone else is getting better treatment. That should be dealt with. Or that they should be getting better treatment. That should be dealt with. And the answer is everyone should be equal. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with telling your child that, suck it up. You're probably just not noticing. that things are equal and that's just how you feel for today, and just deal with it and then just let it go for a while and see how things develop. But I mean, take it seriously, but not like react. Well, according to Mom is number 7. Let's see. Parents are wrong sometimes. They should never have an alternative to what the teacher instructs the kids to do. Whether it's a correction question or request, students should never tell this to their teachers. Well, yeah, if the child goes home and the parents are saying that's not the best way to do it, or that's a bad way to teach it, or I had a teacher who taught it to me that way and I never learned from them, or even if you have legitimate concerns, so you may not really appreciate the Common Core, for example. It's best not to air that in front of the child. They'll start second guessing everything from that the teacher's saying, and they are not old or mature enough to be judging the teacher and whether the strategy is good or anything like that. So best to keep them out of it. If you have concerns, talk to the teacher directly. Just go right to the teacher and give a call and ask. It's better to ask, because a lot of times, if you don't know it, the difference between what actually happens in school and then the child's perception of that, and then what gets repeated at home, can be two very, very different things. And a child's motivation to tell you one thing may not be something you really recognize. So probably the worst thing is, this would get under my skin a little bit, is if a child feels like he's just going to go home and say, well, I'm just going to have my mom write a note and then I don't have to do that or something. It shouldn't work that way. People can be flexible, but you can't just write a note and just sort of change the way things are going. That's got to be a part of a conversation. And it's not part of it. It's not a debate that the child should be included in. 8, I pay taxes. I'm your boss somehow. Well, I think that's another one that they probably want to just keep you reading. That's just sort of funny, You could tell that to a police officer or a judge. See where that gets you. For a public school and even for a private school, you're paying their salary. That's first definitely, but doesn't necessarily put you in charge of the classroom. How can you be a good teacher yet you have no kids? Well, teachers, let's see what it says. Having kids is not one of the requirements of being a teacher. Also, if someone wants kids or not, it's none of one's business except theirs. The important thing is that they teach. Yeah, I mean, I guess, sure, start with these, none of your business, but, think about it. Having kids can help, and it can a little bit hurt. Here's how it can hurt, at least temporarily. Sometimes when a teacher has those teenage students at home, they get a little grumpy. I'm just going to tell you right now, they get a little grumpy for a few years, and then they kind of relax again after that. But also, you get plenty of experience with teaching with kids. I mean, a parent, what if they have 3 kids? Well, they've had their direct experience with 3 kids that are all probably relatively similar. They spend part of the day with them. A teacher has dealt with hundreds of kids. They know what's going on. Number 10, are you teaching anything important tomorrow, or any important thing tomorrow? Well, yeah, you always are. That's usually a question you'll get if somebody really wants to take their child out of school for some reason. But I think most of the time, parents don't don't know what's going on in the classroom, and it doesn't really seem like all that much important is going on a certain day, and it just doesn't seem that way. But it's like any job. Ask anybody. Does it really matter if you come into work today? Are you doing anything? Well, yeah. If you take a child out early, they're going to miss some stuff. even if it's like last half day before a vacation, then you might actually have fun time, which is important. If it's more important for you to leave, I mean, maybe okay, but sometimes it's okay for the class to have sort of a little bit of a fun day, and it's a bonding experience, and sometimes people say things like, "Well, after about 2 o'clock, you're just packing bags or something." This is depending on when the school gets out. But I had somebody ask me about that with an hour and a half left in the day, and they just don't always know what's going on. That's the main thing. But they're kind of looking for most of the time. They're kind of looking for a way to tell themselves that it doesn't matter if they take a kid out of school for a few days early or something, or a couple of days early, or a few hours early, or they always miss the second half of Thursday every week, or they will miss something. There's just nothing you can. There's no other answer to that. Conclusion: teachers saying, "All right, typical blah blah blah." Well, let's see what the introduction said. Teaching's probably the toughest career in the world. Okay, I think that's just boilerplate. Appreciate your teachers. They're the greatest, and they make so much sacrifice. And look, it's a job, and it's a division of labor. Everybody does the best you can, and we do different things. So I hope that was helpful to you. And there are plenty of lists like this out there, and they have different things. And maybe we'll do some more of them sometime.